If you are the meeting host, enter your PIN followed by a pound. If you are not the host, press pound. You are the first person to join the meeting. Please stand by.
Okay, I think we're ready to go. Oh, this one out. Ready to roll? All right, well, welcome. We will have the special meeting of the Board of Selectmen Tuesday, the 14th of July. Two items on the agenda. One is a fireworks update, and the second is a variety of things having to do with employee compensation. The first item is the fireworks update. The selectmen have a aerial view of the fireworks scene, and this has been sent up to the governor's advisor, Jonathan Harris, and he is speaking to Commissioner Lehman to see what might be done for O-line for the fireworks. You can see on the map we have two viewing areas. One is the field between the middle school and the high school. That's north viewing area. And the south viewing area is behind the center school, including the little baseball diamond, but not the track area. The combined area has probably capacity for over 11,000 people, using 15 square feet a person. But the governor's guidance right now is to have fireworks with 500 viewers. So when we were talking with Mr. Harris, the question came up whether we might have two viewing areas, and if you consider the north viewing area and the south viewing area as two separate areas, possibly we might get some consideration for two 500 groups of people. So I was texting with him this afternoon, and he hasn't come back with a definite answer one way or the other. But clearly, if we were constrained to 500 spectators, that just probably does not make any sense to proceed with the display. If we were able to have 1,000, that's probably more in line with what our crowds have been. It's hard to say because we don't have a way to count people coming into the viewing areas. But we described there were questions from Jonathan about where people would be coming in, and whether there'd be porta potties and that sort of thing. Mentioned food trucks, and we said that anything like in the way of a food truck would be, if there were any, would be out on Lime Street, and we would have limited sanitation, and so we will get a response hopefully tomorrow to let us know. The application for the fireworks has been completed and it's ready to be submitted, so we're just waiting. So I guess that's an update. I don't know if the selectmen have questions or comments about the fireworks, but that's where we are at the moment.
I mean, it's only 10 days away, pretty much after tomorrow. I mean, do we even have enough time to do everything? And
well, I think the 15th was the day that the permit should go up to the Department of Public Safety.
Mm-hmm.
So if we get favorable consideration, it could be taken up there and processed. I don't think the volume is particularly heavy right now, but so Dave Roberge indicated that it should be able to be processed. He said the 15th, so that's tomorrow, so that might be satisfactory.
I think a lot of things have changed since we discussed this. We had our vote. The hope at that point and the indication at that point in the state was that things were going in a positive direction for our area and certainly for our state. As we all know, we spoke with the fire marshal too about mid-July, the plan to go into phase 3 and have a no-cap event at fireworks. So we talked about ingress and egress with a no-cap event. And things have changed since then. We've not gone into phase 3, and as you said, we're held at 500. The idea of having 2 500 viewing spots means double the effort on our limited emergency management folks to make sure that not only the people stay 15 feet apart, but that they can enter and exit safely. It would mean we need double the porta potties, double the hand washing facilities, double the sanitizer we talked about, pretty much double everything. And I just don't see how the budget can afford that, number one. But number two, I feel like this is going around the intent of the executive order. They have 2 500 groups of 500. I don't think it was the intent. Kudos to you for giving it a shot at Hartford, but I don't support the split viewing required, as I understand, a change in the shell size that we typically use. So I don't even know if we're within budget anymore. I haven't seen it, and I haven't seen the contract. I have gotten cards and letters from people, reasonable people in the town. I have not gotten one that said, "Yay, Mary Jo, for supporting this." Every one of them was, "What are you thinking about?" Some of them have been sent to all the selections, so you've gotten them too. So, at this point, given the fact that things are, for COVID, are not going in the direction we had hoped, I do not support the fireworks for July 25th, regulated July 26th.
Okay. Chris, do you have any comments?
I mean, we are getting down to the wire. They're kind of like threading the needle with this whole thing. So, I mean, we can see what the answer is tomorrow. We can always cancel tomorrow. We don't need a meeting to cancel, right?
What?
So we don't need a meeting to cancel, so we can still cancel tomorrow.
Well, I guess if we're going to take a vote, it should be in the format of a selectmen's vote. So I guess if...
What has Dave said about the fire danger? I mean, we had last week a little bit, now it's been dry again, so what's the chance of that?
I don't think the fire, things falling on the school and so forth, I mean, these are little pieces of cardboard, so if they...
No, I understand that, but it's just, I mean, it's a nice event. I'm in favor of the nice event, but, I mean, are we jamming this too close?
Well, I guess we should probably have a vote tonight about whether we want to continue with the plan. I would say if the decision comes down from Hartford that it would be only 500, that doesn't make any sense. If it was more, then we could conceivably proceed in that fashion. I've not heard any negative feedback nor major positive feedback, honestly. So I think when we talked about it before, it's the sort of event that people could come out on an evening and have a nice diversion from the norm. So I think people do sit on the south viewing area not as much as they do on the north, and it's hard to estimate whether people will come out. You know, there might be some who would say, well,
no, that's a lot of money for just people for a thin show.
Yeah, well, certainly if we had 500, it would be not worthwhile. Now there are a lot of people that view the fireworks from other locations, such as Meeting House, Library Lane, and so on and so forth. So I guess probably if there's a thought that if the board feels it shouldn't keep going, we could take a vote, and if that were the outcome, then we would stop the presses. If the board thought, well, let's see what happens with the capacity question, then I guess we'd be looking to continue the effort. So,
Tim, can you tell me, given this new plan, which the board did not agree to, what is the thinking for controlling the ingress and egress and assuring that people are safely spaced apart?
well, I think a lot of people come in from between the two schools, so they could be directed. It's not going to be that precise in terms of, keeping here and there, but I would say the primary entry point is between the two schools, so you could have people go to one of the two areas, and perhaps since the field, the north viewing is perhaps the more traditional place to be, we'd have to have some people help direct them to the south. You can see from the diagram the viewing should be equally good from either one.
Well, I think you get people set up in both areas. I mean, that's fine. It's just the numbers, Yeah,
it's
if
an unknown.
If we can get the 1,000 people and the allowance for 1,000 people, that's one thing. But we're skirting the system by doing the 2,500.
The what?
We're skirting the system by doing the 2,500. So I don't know.
It would be with the state sanction, so it would. I wouldn't say it's skirting the system. It's where the question was posed whether we would have two areas, and with the service road and so forth, it seems that we do. They have this map.
I think it's taking the existing order and trying to add an ancillary viewing site, which wasn't part of the plan. Was not to say that the state wouldn't say, "Well, I wish we thought about that." However, we again have limited resources to manage 1,000 people, let alone two groups of maybe 500, as you stated. We don't count. Plus people on Lime Street, as you pointed out, all the other people that it might force to hang out together when maybe it's not a good idea under this current situation. I also think, given what happened at Crosslane Fields at the end of June, I have a real question whether this town is equipped for this. We allowed this event to happen, didn't follow protocol, didn't follow procedure in broad daylight. I don't have any confidence that we can pull this off at night. I understand Chris's point. We could wait and have a vote tomorrow, and I don't know again what the contract, what we signed, if we signed anything in the contract, and if we lose any money by voting to not hold the fireworks at the end of July. I don't know if there's an option to consider having them maybe in September or October if things improve. You'd have to let me know. But the way things are going throughout the country, it just makes no sense to me anymore. And it does feel like we're skirting the system. I don't feel proud of that. I don't feel like that's something that we can say, hey, look what we did. We skirted the executive orders.
I don't
I
agree.
don't feel proud of that. So I support voting to not hold the fireworks in July.
You want to make a motion to that effect?
I make that motion.
Okay, it's moved to not have the fireworks. Can we have a second to have discussion on it?
Well, yeah.
Hmm?
I'll second. But
Okay.
Discussion.
All right, any more discussion on it?
It would be great if we could postpone it, but I don't know if that's going to happen. You know, we don't know what's going on.
I don't know if it's going to be any different.
Yeah. So I think it's just too much right now to go by next Saturday. Personally.
Well, the 25th.
Well, yeah, a week from Saturday, 10 days.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay, well,
we ought to hold off.
we don't know whether it would be, probably availability of the fireworks people and so forth would be, they would likely be available at a later date. And maybe they would have the same criteria, if we were allowed to have it with two separate areas, it might, if they don't change the phase 3 thing, that could accommodate later on. We don't know whether we would be eligible for that at this point, so.
Tim, is the fireworks company working with any other towns right now?
I don't know if they're preparing any shows for anyone else. I'm not sure. They didn't mention. Obviously we chose this time of the year a long time ago because it was outside of the normal rush of fireworks. So, and I don't suppose late August or September, once you get towards school, you're probably not wanting to have fireworks in September because you get other activities going on. You're starting to get bumped into that. But perhaps August would be a time frame you can look to do, and whether the facts would change, I don't know. Okay, so let's, so the motion is not to have the fireworks. Who votes in favor of that?
The motion is not to have fireworks in July.
Okay. And I'll vote nay. So it'll be 2-1 that we suspend the fireworks till perhaps another time.
The motion is not to have the fireworks in July.
What?
The motion was not to have fireworks in July 2-1.
That's correct. So I will notify the company that the July date will not work. And same with the Mr. Harris and so forth, just so people aren't working on it right now. Okay. All right, the next item is to consider vacation carryover and a variety of other things. So the first item is the vacation carryover. This is for the non-union, primarily town hall people, and a couple of public works individuals. The printed page is that vacation time can be carried over to the extent of five days. And due to the coronavirus and so forth, individuals have a good bit more than that minimum. And so we've been trying to get the days down, but probably 10 days takes care of a lot of people, but there are some individuals who have in excess of that even. So I've distributed to the selectmen a list of remaining vacation hours and also converting that to days. And as you can see, looking at the days, there are many that are at 10 or less. If we were talking about 10 as a rule of thumb, then I would say most people fit within that. There are, however, some other situations where people have far in excess of that or slightly more than that. So this year, the vacation, it used to be that employees got their vacation all at once as of the first of the year, fiscal year, July 1. And this year, because of the change to the handbook, we are giving people 50% of their vacation at July 1st, and then when we get to January 1st, people will accrue vacation days on a monthly basis based on their seniority. So this list details where we are with the vacation that has not been used, and in the case of let's see, in the case of Ed Adante, I talked with him, and he doesn't take a lot of vacation, bless his heart, and so he would be satisfied with carrying over 120 hours, which would be, he works 8 hours and not 6 hours, so that would be his amount. If we took the other personnel using this 10-day thing, you can see those numbers. When we get to Kim Groves, why she has slightly more than the 10-day, and she would be comfortable with having the 10 days. We get to Dave Robert, she has more days and more hours than that, so we would honor that, and the same with Nicole. She has a fairly good balance. And then we received 2 requests from union employees to carry over a specific amount of days, and so I put those on there. As I said, the union contracts are specific on how they handle days. So the proposal would be to carry over the days you see in the right-hand column, And these days would be used before, obviously, new vacation would be used. And people are aware that come next year, the personnel manual would be enforced in terms of carrying over the 1 week, this year being a hybrid with the COVID. So that's the proposal that I worked on. I appreciate anybody's input on this, but we do need to decide this so that we can solidify this soon, in the month of July, excuse me.
Tim, what's the first column? It says RAQ.
The first column with the vacation hours in 2020?
No, to the left of that.
Oh, those were persons who had sent requests in to carry over.
Okay. What about the people that, had hours up until, I guess, recently, and we've had conversations with them, and they were able to eat some of their vacation during COVID, as opposed to being allowed to carry it over?
I think, I encourage people starting probably back in March, certainly April, to use vacation, because there was no commitment to do anything about days over 5. So as opposed to losing vacation, if people were not coming into town hall and if they could take vacation days and use it up as much as possible, that would be good. So, it would have to be in accordance with the supervisor's agreement as to whatever they were doing, their work. I think there's been, unfortunately, a fairly consistent pattern over time where, the vacation, I think the supervisors have to monitor it better, because I don't know this for a fact, but I have a feeling that vacation was bunched up toward the end of the year, and it's very difficult to get people to take it if you have a lot of people wanting to do it at the same time. You can have people in the same department trying to take their vacation. So I think going forward we have to have the supervisors get vacation schedules basically started for the year, so that they can understand when the staff will be taking time, so that they don't have too many people trying to take vacation at the same time.
Yeah, I think that would be a problem normally, but throwing COVID into it, how much of this carryover do you feel people have had, they had to come in, or they had to do, maybe carry more people's work because, say, their employee, that somebody under them wasn't able to work for a variety of reasons. How much of the carryover do you think is really directly related to COVID?
Well, you figure COVID was with us for 4 months. Mm-hmm. So if people didn't take their time during the 8 months, and we're hoping to take the time in the remaining 4 months, then it became more difficult to take vacation, and some said, well, I can't do much with my vacation. That's not exactly the town's fault, but
and it's not the employee's fault.
But except it's a fact, and so you want to have, I think you want to have people take vacation for mental hygiene as well. I think we are at a point where a lot of folks are, say, under the 10-day thing, so that's pretty good. I think next year we want to have people at the 5-day or less, and I think that message is getting out, and we'll reinforce it so that we don't try to have people cramming it into the last month or two. So I think there's just a lot of people in the same boat with vacation that has been stranded, if you will, and so I think if we get into the new year and start telling people we want you to work as hard as you can to get rid of this in the first half of the year, let's say, so that we don't roll this into the new vacation and create another problem for the second half of next year. I think people have to work hard to get their vacation used up. And if next year at this time people have a bunch left over, then they'll have to know that it won't just be, okay, whatever you'd like to do. I think it has to be more strict enforcement of it unless there's some really extraordinary circumstance.
So they're normally allowed 5, right? Basically.
That's in the book.
It's in the book. This year, we're giving them, allowing 10. One time only.
And more for certain people, but yeah, a little.
And so the 5 names here that are over, we're allowing them.
Well, I think it would be a pretty heavy price to wipe out
I agree.
20 days and so forth. So I think it's trying to give everybody a fair shake, and saying, okay, if we do this year, everybody has to know that next year we won't be able to be as generous. It's just, I think everybody can work a little harder to take their vacation. You'll use it or lose it.
And is everybody on board with this, as far as everybody knows?
On the vacation, when I spoke with Kim, I'm agreeing with 3 weeks, but next year you can guarantee I'll be giving you back 6. Chris knows what my job entails. When the virus hit, and you can say it was in March, but it actually happened before that when it started, and my department did a lot to get the beaches and everything up and running and other things. In my situation, I have to be here. Now in October, the budget's coming up again. I have paving going on in August. It's going to happen all along the states. I have to be here. I can't go away or stay home because my phone's going to ring anybody. Because I'm the guy like you 3 up there that the public goes to. So, to let me carry over 3 weeks, fine, but you're going to get it back. So it doesn't matter now if you take them now or if you take them in 21.
I guess my comment is just that everyone is treated the same. If it's 2 weeks, it's 2 weeks. If it's 3 weeks, it's 3 weeks. You know, there were some public works union guys that had 1 day and we were going to give them nothing. But yet one other person requested it formally and was getting a lot more, or even another union employee is getting over 3 weeks. So I guess my concern was just to do it equally and fairly, and if we're going to go whatever I'm not sure, don't have the form you do, I'm just going by what my balance is here. Except for Ed, who now says he'll be at 120.
I'm speaking personally for myself because
that's all and I agree with him. There's a lot of people that stayed home and worked at home. There was some people that stayed home and just kind of cycled through, and there was some people that stayed here all the time and tried to help out in other departments where they could. I mean, I was here 35, 40 hours a week, wasn't that I wanted to be here, if I could have been home, you know, on vacation, I guess, but it just felt like some of us got penalized.
It's hard to make statements about people working from home, you know. You expect that they're doing their job as best they can, whether if you had a little mini camera on them,
Well, some of it is just a function that the town hall is closed, and if you're kind of like in a customer department, you don't have people coming in, and so you're right, there's less to do, and you know, why should they be here? So I'm not saying anything about anybody or what they did, or, you know, I'm just saying I know what I did and some other people that felt they couldn't take their vacation. So.
Yeah.
So do you think this setup is more fair?
Taking 3 weeks for everybody? Up to 3 weeks? Is that what you mean?
Well,
No, carrying over 10 days. No.
No, then I'd lose a week. And Ed would lose a week.
Yeah. I really think.
And when anything had to get done around here for COVID, you know, Phil and Dave for Burge called Ed. Ed moved all the stuff.
I'm not denying anybody didn't work. I'm just trying to figure out a fair way to do this. Or we are.
well, I think the 10-day is not a rule so much. It's an observation that people have worked to get the vacation down, and you see a number of them that are over 5 and under 10, and so if we give a little credit to the fact that it was a turbulent time, if we let them work that off as quickly as possible next year and don't have to repeat this next year.
I think, like Nicole's saying, to be fair, and it's a one-time deal, is you really have to go to 3 weeks. People, I mean, they did their job. I mean, it's no one's fault that the virus came, not the town's, not ours, but to really show the town's appreciation and that the people that were dedicated, I really think the town should carry over 3 weeks. I mean, we've got a lot of good employees here. A lot of them aren't too happy right now, and we all know why that is. But I really think you have to do a one-time deal, make it very clear that it's only this 1 year, and then it's done. And then you go back to the original 1 week or whatever it is. To save face and to show the people that you are behind them.
How many people do you have in Public Works that would, I'm just looking down the list here, which is
Well, there's 5 people over 10 days. So everybody is allowed the 10 days, and are we making an exception for the second 5?
well, I think he's talking about Public Works, right?
Well, I'm talking about everybody on this list. That includes Public Works,
No.
correct?
No, we don't have any public, well, they got got one at the bottom.
You got 9 days.
No, you got Ruddy, and then you got Ed.
Well, he's not in the union, nor is Ed.
Where not in the union.
Okay.
We had 3 public work union guys from time over.
How much?
2 of them had 1 day, and 1 of them has almost 2 weeks.
9 days.
9 days. So if we did the 10 days, he'd be covered. So
They covered.
yeah. So basically, all the public work guys would be covered if we do the 10 days. It's just that 5 people that I'm talking about here. You, Ed, Kim Groves, Dave, and Donovan.
All your non-union people are not covered.
No, the non-unions are you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Donovan. We have him down as union staff, as being over also. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my question is, how are we going to handle that? Because you're gonna lose out if we do this.
If you only let us carry over 10 days,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
You're gonna get
the 5
ripped off.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I'm saying, how can we not do that?
Then you have to say that it would be whatever your balance is, or the max people can carry over is 3 weeks.
For one time.
Well, in Public Works, I think
So
the
there are only two
motto is the only individual who has,
9 days. Everybody else, the 2 people have only 8 hours.
yeah.
Everybody else is
So they're under the radar. They can carry over. I guess now the policy for them is at the end of the year for vacation time. Is it a use it or lose it? I forget. What happens to somebody that has 8 hours?
For the Public Works Union,
Yeah.
They can cover, they can carry over.
you use it or lose it unless you have approval by
Right.
him and you that they can carry up to 5 days.
And Scott
Okay,
submitted
so-
a letter, and I told him there was no problem because, and once again, it's because of the virus. He has 2 little kids at home.
All right. Well, we understand that. So, but there are only 2 people other than D'Amato who have time apparently that wasn't used, and it's 8 hours each, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that still leaves 5 people, including the Public Works, with over the 10 days. And if we
And
went,
all of these people are essential.
right.
So that may be another way of putting it. The essential workers of Coleman, which under the executive order they were required to work, makes sense to carry over all of their 3
Nicole.
weeks. Nicole is essential.
No, I agree with that. I'm
Yeah.
just asking you a question. If we went to the 15 days, 3 weeks, that would make 2 people, you and Ed.
Well, Ed, didn't you say you're going to be happy with 120 or not?
I told you. You're gonna give me 3 weeks, and you're taking, almost another week away from me.
Yeah, so, correct.
But I'll do the 3 weeks because I know I'm not gonna use them. Chris, you know I can't use them.
Right. So if we switch it to the 15 days, the only 2 people are going to be affected. It's basically the same if we leave it at 10, because there's 1 person at 12.29 and 10.38. This is going to affect. So it's not like we're having everybody having an additional 3 weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we went to 3 weeks, we're only basically 2 people, and that's still Nicole's gonna lose a 3/4 of a day, and Ed's gonna lose a few days, but it sounds like they were okay with it. So if we went to 15, we're only affecting 2 people.
You okay with it? 3 weeks?
I'm okay with 3 weeks, because
Yeah.
I'm like Ed, I don't even think I'll be
Yeah.
able to use that. I'll be
3
giving it
weeks.
back next year anyways. I need it to be the same for everybody. I have to treat everybody equally. That's my big thing, because you can't give something to one person and not the other, and have it just for some reason that, they have a kid or something like that. You don't want to get into
The personal aspects
you
of it.
don't want to, just across the
No,
board.
and as to, you don't even have to use the name, the other person on the staff of the Public Works, I mean, that's almost like a favoritism, because he wrote a letter.
Okay, so the
If we do the 15,
not to exceed 15 days.
but you'd have to use it all, like the same wording as before, use it all before next fiscal year, and then
Well, I
everybody's down
would-
to 5.
I would say we would want, because people are getting new vacation, I would think we would want to have the carryover vacation burned by December 31st. Because
How do you, as an accounting thing, how can that be done?
That's how we've done it in the past.
Okay,
It
so
was like,
Because-
use it by November 1st or whatever.
we have some employees who get 5 weeks of vacation. So if somebody carries over a couple of weeks, now they got 7 weeks. So if we don't,
You're not jealous, are you?
don't get any
Jealous with every
vacation.
vacation day.
So I think we would want to say that this has got to go away or lose it by December 31st, because in many cases the people with some big balances are replenishing their vacation, and it'll be right back in the same boat. Do you think that'd be workable?
Yeah. I think people are used to it.
All right.
So if we go max 15 days and use carryover by the 31st of December of 20, and then the second half of the year, by June 30th, we're back to the stated carryover policy.
I should hope there's a vaccine by then.
21. Strict.
So do we need a motion for that?
Yeah, so we got maximum 15 days of carryover up to. The carryover needs to be used by the 31st of December 2020, and all vacation must be used in accordance with a carryover policy in the respective contracts and employee manual by the 30th of June 2021.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Very good. Well, thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item is the sick time. There's a revised sick time tracking sheet dated the 30th of June. It's was prepared by Nicole. It's got July 14th in the lower corner. Okay? So what we have here is the bank sick time as of that date. I think it's important to note that the sick time has had a couple iterations over the years. I think in 2013, well, going back before 2013, I believe for the town hall staff, sick time was paid out at the end of the year, the unused sick time. And I'm not sure if the option existed to accumulate sick time rather than being paid off. If that was, okay, so the employee had the choice of getting paid out at the end of the year, or they could bank sick time. Then, I guess in 13, the policy was instituted to require the accumulation of 30 days of sick time before any payout would be allowed. And then once you were at the 30-day level, you could get payouts of accumulated sick time above that. I'm not sure if it says that you could not accumulate more than a certain amount on the high side. For instance, if you want to go 40 days or 50 days. Nicole, would there have been an option to continue beyond 30 to accumulate sick time? It doesn't state, I don't think, in the manual.
I don't know if we always paid out everything over 30, so I'm not sure if that option existed at the time.
Yeah. Okay, and So that was in 2013, I believe. And then in 18, when this new manual or newer manual was made, which was not actually implemented for a couple of years, the policy says that full-time employees are required to carry over all unused sick leave from one year to the next. So that would definitely mean if you were at 30, if you had 8 more days, you'd go to 38, and so on and so forth into the future. If separation of employment, full-time employees would be compensated for any amount of accrued but unused sick leave at 50% of their current rate, subject to a couple of conditions. So that became even a little more prohibitive about getting any cash out. So there was, during some staff meetings, we heard from a couple of individuals that this is really quite onerous, not having any payout and just requiring it to be stacked up. And of course, it could lead to temptation to. I think of our sick days, 3 of them are personal days that can be used for non-sick purposes. So it's a little bit of a hybrid. All right, so this chart details the amount of hours that individuals have, and some have very little, and others a fair bit. So we have heard that certain people would like all sick time to be liquidated as much as an employee would like. They would have the option of having it all liquidated, or they might leave some on the books just for a rainy day. The other would be to have people accumulate a certain amount of time, and anything above and beyond that, they could be paid out for that. And it's silent on whether you can just keep going accumulating, because that can create another problem if you just keep stacking it up. So I think what we're trying to do this evening is to quantify some of this, and the column which you see called total gives the consequence if all sick time, if the option were given to employees that they could cash out all their sick time or have nothing in the bank. I doubt that would be the case, but in the worst case scenario right now, that would be $73,543 approximately. So I think the selectmen need to consider what we might do. From an accounting standpoint, having these kind of numbers accruing, it's not ideal to have a large sum like this. Now, if everybody were at 30 days, that would be the case as well. But if one were to leave employment and be paid at 50%, then of course that liability would be much reduced. So I guess we want to talk about, in the big picture, do we want to give the employees the option of cashing out sick leave to the extent that they want, or retaining the 30-day provision and then they could get cashed out for the amount in excess of the 30 days, or as the manual says, you would just accumulate sick days with no cash out at all. I think there's a benefit by having some accumulated sick time if one were injured at home on a non-workers' comp situation. You have sick time, but once you exhaust your sick time, then you go to short-term disability, and that's 70% of pay. So certain individuals want to have some bank time so that would be a buffer to a 30% pay cut if something serious happened. But that it becomes an individual decision about that. So I guess we could open it up for some discussion about the pluses and minuses. At some point we probably want to call for a motion and see how we want to handle this, because the manual says there's no payout and there's no maximum accumulation time. And I think we've heard some negative feedback on that.
Well, it's definitely cheaper to pay them now than having their annual rate go up every year that way. But so are we saying that they'll still be allowed to bank?
I think you could give people that option. I don't know how many would tend to, might keep a few days or no days. We know there are some that.
Well, how was it before? I was told before you were kind of pushed to bank stuff.
When I had to bank my 30 days, I didn't have a choice. I was told by the previous first selectwoman that you have to bank 30 days, and then after the end of your 30 days, we will pay you for your sick time. I had no choice. Then I get this new book that says that when I retire, I'm only going to get paid 50%. Well, hold on a minute. If I didn't bank it, I would have got 100% every year. And I was never told about this new handbook. Well, that's a shady deal. Now, I don't care who's here that was involved in it, but that's bad business. And let me explain something. You have a problem in this town hall with the employees upstairs. The union gets the 2 weeks carryover. They can carry over their bank sick leave and vacation, and at the time of their termination, they get paid 100%. Tim, when the union first came in, you sat there with me when you said, we're going to try to keep the non-union people basically what the union staff gets, so we don't have a problem with another union. Unions, I'm sure, aren't fun to deal with.
Yeah, now
all of a sudden now, here we are. What was wrong with just paying people for their unused sick time? And if they wanted to bank it, explain to them, well, yeah, but you only get 50%. Not jam it down the non-union people's throat. This town never did that. They always watched out for their employees. I've been here 33 years. I'm pissed. I've never said a bad word about what goes on in here in my life, because I like my job, I work very hard at it, and I try to save this town money, and I don't even live in this town. But
now, just as a point of reference, the police union, their cash out is at 25%. So I'm not saying good, bad, or different.
I'm talking about how you handle, and my department in this town hall was always handled. The police department's always been on their own.
Now, another issue would be, of course, if we were to go in a direction of a cash out, we don't know how many would take a total cash out, but undoubtedly the Board of Finance would have to approve something of this magnitude. It may not be all of the amount here, but it could be a good portion of it. So we probably have to talk to the Board of Finance, and if they would have to weigh in.
So in the past it was you were allowed to carry 30 days and cash out excess at the end of the year.
You were required to carry 30 days.
Required?
Up to. I mean, there was no choice. There would be no cash out until you got to 30.
We've gone evolutions. It first started right where everyone could you could either bank 3 days at the end of the year and get cash out for the rest, or get cash out for 100% at the end of the year. And then that was changed. And you had to bank for 30 days.
Before you got any cash out.
Before you got any cash out. And then in 2018, manual came out where, again, there's no max, you're forced to bank everything and you get no payout ever until you retire or leave, and then you get 50%.
But that was not implemented in 2018.
Right.
So was it implemented, what were you continuing to do then? Were you continuing to pay people out if that wasn't implemented over 30 days?
Yes, this 2018 was approved by the Board of Selectmen. I was told not to implement it, so I continued to pay people out.
Okay.
Over 30 days.
Okay, with the exception of,
I
it
didn't
sounds like you didn't
I didn't get paid my sick time this year because I was told that the new book went in July 1. But I was also told that after the meeting we had in February at my garage, that we were not gonna put that into effect until we ironed out all the problems in it. And then all of a sudden, I'm told that, no, it's who's on first? Because I didn't get my 8 hours on my 8 days, and I've got 30 days banked out on all of it. And I hope it goes back to everybody gets paid at the end of the year for the sick time they didn't use. That was working out fine. I don't know where this came from, but Tim did the numbers, and then he finally really said it. It's going to cost a lot of money when people start retiring.
I've had conversations with you anyway, offline, that trying to remember the genesis of the purpose of that, but I believe, as I recall, and I think I told you that the idea behind what I understood is that in order to bank the time in case you had a cataclysmic illness, it would benefit the person, say you had cancer diagnosis.
But that is not the town's problem. If I'm ready to roll the dice forever, fine. If I go out on the sickness, I get 70% of my pay for 56 weeks. I've got 5 weeks vacation when I get 8. I've got 12 paid holidays, 8 sick days. If I can't come back after all that time, I'm either dead or I'm definitely not coming back. So what do I need another 30 days for?
I understand your particular case, but I was just trying to make a point, trying to remember where I was, what I believe was the reason for this.
I understand the reason.
Pushing the liability, if you will,
I understand.
off,
Yeah. Like I said, I understand the reasoning, but it was not the town's business to mandate and make someone bank hours that they would have got paid for, and then tell them you're only going to get 50% if you don't use them.
Nicole, in terms of a maximum number of days, from an accounting standpoint, if this provision were not changed and every year a healthy person would be adding 8 days, let's say, you get 40, 50, 60, does that become a financial problem for reporting purposes?
Well, I actually have to go through this calculation for my audit, because I have to record the liability on my financial report. But we don't really consider this in our budget, right? So as this grows, we have, a sick buyback account, which has always been about $25,000, but again, this year it will be over because the former select woman left, and she had maxed it out for 30 days, so I had to pay her, half of what she had, and that was a big amount. So in a case like this year, we'll throw our budget, and a couple of high-priced people, I say high-priced, but higher-paid people leave in a year, that will hurt our budget, because it's not like I budget $80,000 like the sheet shows.
No.
We can, but increase the mill rate, and it might not come to fruition ever. So we have that 80,000, and only, you know.
So if we were to consider, let's explore the payout and give the option of 100% payout, would we want to have a max number of banked days for sick time, just to, you know, we're concerned about this potential liability here. So would there be any reason to have a cap on the number of days that an employee could stack up if they wanted to do that?
I would say that would be reasonable. What that number is, I don't know if it's 30 days or 15 days. I can tell you, in the past, there was only maybe 1 or 2 employees that actually carried over any days of sick. Almost everybody had it paid out at the end of the year.
Because in the police union, the thinking's quite different.
Right.
And they want to have as much sick time carried over as possible, and so it's a whole different mindset.
So if we went to say you can bank up to 30 days, you have the option. You bank up to 30 days, cash out the rest, or you have the option of cashing out everything. If everybody cashed out, it would be the 73,000. Just turned it into 0.
Right.
Right? So that's the worst extreme number. But if we change the book again and say, all right, most you can do bank, you're allowed to cash out if you wish, or you can bank up to 30 days. And then this one-time deal, cut everybody a check over 30 days to kind of like zero it out. That would bring that number down, because some people will carry over the time. Is that like a fair way?
I think so. I mean, that would be more than fair based on where we are now.
Mm-hmm.
Although we say the worst case is the 74,000, you could split that in half, and you could take 36,000 and pay it out of 1920. You could post it back to June, and the other half would come out in July. The current year budget.
Straddle it.
Right, straddle it.
Well, I don't think everybody would cash it all in. I mean, that's their choice if they wanted to, but I think some people would leave it on the books.
Some people leave some in there.
There would be a tax consequence if somebody got a big check. That'll be added to compensation.
I think it would help our town and help them personally if they straddle it.
Well,
so
it wouldn't help them tax-wise because it's all in the same calendar year.
Never mind, yeah.
If you did that, would you still pay the bank time out when people leave at 50%? At least now everybody knows that.
Well, Nicole, what about this? If of the 73,000, if you took half in June or July, but back it to the fiscal year 20, and then gave people the option of taking half in July or deferring the second half till January of the next year, then you'd be in 2 different tax years for the individual.
You could do that.
Yeah, it would be the same fiscal year.
Don't do an option. You could do it, make everybody do it one way or the other. I don't want to do some people do it in July and some people do it in January. It's easier just to do it.
Well, I mean, it would be,
going to get their money, so
because in the case of somebody who got $14,000, you could say, I'd just rather not pay. It might push me into a higher bracket or something. If it wasn't that tough for the accounting area to push it to the next calendar year for them.
no, that's not a big deal.
Okay.
And I'm not sure I see the value when someone retires or leaves paying it 50%. Why would we pay them at their current rate?
The what now?
If their bank, whatever they had left in the bank, you asked if we would still be interested in paying them out at 50% when they leave. I'm not sure I understand the reason for that. Why would we pay them?
100%?
Mm-hmm.
You just got, the liability grows as you go, you know.
Yeah, but you're kind of putting assuming a person works long and healthy career here, you're kind of denigrating, I think, their age and years of service.
If it was left that would give back at 100%, you probably would get more people that would bank sick time. Because they're gonna get that money when they retire.
Yeah, but the max you can get is the 30 days.
I agree with that. If you didn't pay people out at 50% when they left, I think more people would be willing to keep things in the bank.
Because they know they're gonna get it all.
Which would help the current situation of maybe paying out a lot of money, trying to figure out how to do that from your end. You know, I would be more, I have 30 hours bank, plus this year, so now I'm up to 38 days. But I would be more than willing to leave 30 days in there instead of being paid out now and hurting myself tax-wise, having a problem that you have to figure out with employees like myself, how to give them all this money all of a sudden, and I'll wait till I retire to get it. And so we'll spread it out more.
It just makes the payout at a higher salary rate than it would be if you gave people one shot now and then you're done.
True.
Right, but say Don doesn't retire for 5 years and we implement the 30-day banking. The most he's going to get paid on is 30 days.
Right.
So there always is a cap, and I guess we gotta, you're gonna get your 2 or whatever percent increase every year, so you're gonna be making more than you are today in the future. But
you value these employees and their work. I just, that part, the 50% doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, that's a town thing. I mean, I think it's a nice thing, paying. I mean, that's not a law, right?
No.
Yeah, that's a nice, it's basically a party gift.
Right, because vacation, you don't pay out any.
Right.
Except from home. You do
Right.
always get paid out, but,
The party gift is, thanks a lot, here's half of what we owe you.
that's,
After being told, you guys bank.
Understood.
And not everybody had to follow that direction, because there were people here that did not do it and said they're taking their sick time. Well, you have to do it, you do what you want. This is what's wrong. Change that book to say you get paid out 100%, let the people cash out who wants, like me, and go back to paying people for their unused sick time. Everybody was happy to place with it. I don't understand why that chapter was even put in there.
And we've already said we're not
I
sure,
know.
and it wasn't implemented.
Some of us
So
have
we're moving on.
I know, somebody does have too many glasses of wine or something. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, if we go back to the 30 days, and every year you can cash in your overage or
Your unused sick time.
your unused sick time, or bank up to 30, or anything over the 30, because some people still hold it, and next year they'll have 38 hours at the end of the year, and they'll be cashing in the 8 hours and carrying over the 30.
That's what I was doing,
Right.
until I heard I only had half of my 30. And this year, because they said the new book was put in effect July 1, I didn't get my 8 hours, my 8 days.
Well, we're all listening. We're trying to make,
I know.
we're trying to
I'm
make
glad.
sense of it.
I'm glad you're listening.
Okay, so one option, it could be 2 or 3 options. One option would be to allow the cash out of up to 100% of one's sick leave, or that the employee could bank up to 30 days, or a combination of the two. Payment could be made subject to the Board of Finance, of course. Payment could be made at 100% of the payout in July of 20, or the payout could be split 50% in July of 20 and 50% in January of 21. So does that encapsulate what we were talking about of the payout scheme, subject to the Board of Finance?
Yes, up to 30 days. Anything over 30 days automatically gets cashed out. And or this one, it's going to probably only happen once, that someone can cash it all out right now. Because then
Right.
for the next 4 years, it's going to take 4 years to get through 32 days again.
Chris, does that mean that if I cash everything out, then I got a bank 30 days before I get my check again?
No, every year.
Then every year I get it. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, you have the choice of,
Yeah, I understand.
you know, next year you can either cash in your 8 days or put them in the bank up into 30 days, and then
I've already got the 30 days. You know, I told you I want to cash it out. Now that I cash that out and I get this last year's, next year when I don't use my sick time, I'll get that check.
Yes,
All right.
you have the option.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Do you have the option to take things out in July and January?
This would be a one-shot deal.
Right.
I suppose
I'm saying, do you have to do it in?
If you get it
If
all,
someone was gonna cash out 30 days, they probably would be better off doing it in July and January.
probably.
If I think more people would be comfortable to leave as much time as they already have in the bank, if they knew they were gonna get when they left at some point.
Well, this would be a blue light special for the next 6 months. There's no continuing rolling over payouts and stuff. You would take your balance. If you wanted to get completely liquidated, you'd have the option of pay in full in July, pay 50% in July, 50% in January, and then come June 30th the next year, you can decide what to do with your accumulated sick leave, to be cashed out, banked, or a combo of the two.
Okay.
Sure.
But yeah, your question, I think, was, I mean, can you take the full thing in July? Yeah, if you want to.
I don't know why anybody would, but yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's good to split it, so like you said, you get half next year.
I didn't know if there was if you were just gonna decide on, you could do it either way, or you had to do it.
Right, so going forward, if this is what you're saying, going forward, say 2021, as Tim said, the blue light special, you would, if you bank your 8 hours and you want to get paid on that 8 hours next July, we're not going to split the checks.
Right.
You know, so at that point,
It's small. Yeah.
Right.
And I suppose.
I'll vote in favor of that or second that or whatever.
Well, I mean, maybe another option would be everybody's got to accumulate 30 days, and then once they hit 30, they have the choice of cashing out or leaving it, or maybe no more than, maybe they have to get cashed out once they're at 30.
I still like the first option.
Okay, so do I have to read it again?
Yes, please.
Okay. All the employees listed on here would have the option to cash out up to 100% of their sick leave, or to bank up to 30 days of their sick leave, or both, I guess. Payment could be 100% in July of 2020, or the employee could elect to split it 50% July of 20 and 50% January 21. This arrangement, if approved, would be subject to the Board of Finance approval. Each year following this arrangement, the employee would decide in June whether the accumulated sick time would be paid out, cashed out, or banked, or a combo of the two. Is that
And the bank to be paid out 100%.
the what?
And the bank to be paid out 100% upon termination. So if someone chooses to pay
30 days.
up to 30 days to be paid out at 100%.
Okay, that's different. We haven't talked about that specifically.
Well, we can add that. Well, we can add that. Yeah.
We did talk about it.
I guess I was writing.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second it with, 100%.
Okay,
at the
Yes.
end of the
So upon, I would think.
termination or however.
Okay, so we have it moved and seconded. So in a way of discussion, I think there are clauses about if you that might be vacation day, but I guess yeah. So if you have upon termination or separation, the employee would be paid out for the accumulated sick leave at 100%, right?
Yeah, if they're not being let go for cause or some other of that language that we have in there. They're leaving,
Willfully.
I think it says upon separation of employment, full-time employees will be compensated for any amount of accrued, but that's vacation, sorry. Maybe we don't have the language in there about, yeah, I guess we do, hold on.
You have to return everything, and there's 2 clauses, right?
Yeah, so that clause would
Yeah.
stay the same? Okay.
Yeah, there's the thing about vacation time. There's conditions to get that. All right, so that has been Mary Jo. It moved and seconded. Any other discussion on this proposal? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the next item concerns an unusual compensatory time situation for Don Bugbee. I'm reading from a memo proposal thing that says, as you know, this is to Don. In April of 2020, the town decided to make you a salary employer. As of that date, you had accumulated 1,631 and a half hours of documented comp time for which the town is required to pay you. And at the current rate of $43.63, the amount due is $71,182. The town proposes to pay you that fixed amount over a 3-year period, which would be $23,727 approximately. As of becoming salaried, there'd be no more comp time, obviously. This has not been discussed with the Board of Finance, but it's been something that's been an awkward situation, to say the least, over the years. And so it's, as we're doing these things, I think this is an important matter to clear up and get on a payment schedule. It's not like vacation where comp time can be simply expunged for any reason. You know, it's legitimate compensation. So this would set up a plan over 3 years. where he would receive payments, and that would help with tax liability, as well as the town wouldn't have to support it. This, as I say, has not been reviewed by the Board of Finance, so I think it's an important thing to document and get on a payment schedule, because it's not been handled properly over these years, I don't think. So I think it would be appropriate to have a motion to recommend this to the Board of Finance. And they'll be meeting next Tuesday, I believe, so we'll try to get on the agenda. Am I right, Don, that you are aware of this proposal and are in agreement with it?
I'm aware of the proposal.
And should it be approved, you would agree with it?
I can't make that comment right now.
Well, I mean, I got to know if we want to move this forward or not.
Can we have some discussion on this? Can we discuss this now?
We will. Yeah, I just want to make sure that if we're going to present this and so forth, that if it's approved all the way around, that it would be agreeable to the employee. So.
Well, one of the things I would have to think about and decide about is the 3-year thing, and when, how it would affect me tax-wise, et cetera, and spreading it out another 3 years when I've already been owed for it for 7 years.
Are you thinking, this is a great thing, are you thinking that the time should be shorter, longer, or what?
I haven't been advised on what would be best for me yet.
Well, shall I hold up on this till you?
No, I think I like to hear what everybody else has to say. I mean, the money's owed to me apparently by law, and I've been trying to resolve this for years, and to no avail. And now apparently there's going to be a resolution to it, so I'd like to hear all the options. And we could go through this all day long, and the Board of Finance says no.
Well, they're meeting next week, so I hope we obviously, we're talking about some dollars here between all this stuff, so hopefully we will have favorable response, but that's the board's decision. But I want to present something that, if approved, you can hear more discussion, but maybe before we vote, I think it would be helpful to know if we embarked on this program and it were approved, that you would be in favor of it, and you wouldn't say, I don't agree. That's all.
Well, I would think 3 years is a little bit lengthy. I think this current year, 2020 and 21, like a 2-year thing would be better for me. This is the stuff that's currently on my time card every 2 weeks now. It goes back farther.
No, I know.
A lot farther, and we haven't even talked about that. So if I agree to something here and it all goes away, then it's going away again. And I have tried to fix this for years.
Well, we're trying to fix it now.
So do I.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's fair for you to ask me to say how I want, like say 3 years, do I agree with what you've written? Or I don't think that's fair for me to say right now.
Well,
I don't think it would change anything if you went forward with that agreement.
what's that again?
I don't think it would change anything if you just went forward with what you put down there.
Well, if we went to the Board of Finance with the 3 installments, then if you would prefer to have it in 2 installments, that the board's decision, if it were affirmative, would be of no avail. So I think before we, maybe we can talk some more, and then maybe at some point, I need your guidance as to what.
Right. Can I ask a question? Are Mary Jo and Chris, are you aware of all that stuff in the memo?
Well, I'm aware, I mean, you've been dealing with this for years. You know, we talked, when I was your specialist, I mean, you were always kicking around this idea, and it's grown and grown and grown and grown. So, I mean, it'd be nice to settle this up. And I think you want to settle it up too.
So my question right now, that memo that Tim's reading or has there, are both of you aware of that as well? Or
I became aware of it when I received the memo.
Pardon me?
I became aware of it when I received the memo.
And that was a while back, or?
Received a draft a couple weeks ago, I think. A couple weeks ago, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
Recently.
But I wasn't, you know, we all got this probably the same time or whatever it was, but, you know, I never knew it was that high. You know, I knew it was high, you know, we talked before years ago. So, I mean, maybe what we should do is bring this to the attention of the Board of Finance and say, listen, this is owed to Don. Maybe the Board of Finance, us and Don has to sit down and figure out how he wants to get paid, and Don can talk to his financial guy and figure out what he wants. And we have a number, it's just a matter of how we're going to do it. Correct?
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that if we come up with a motion that it's satisfactory to Don, and you know, if we have this other thing here, you know, we're trying to be sensitive to what we're asking the board in the first few days of the new fiscal year. We're picking the pockets already, so, you know, we want to get this done. So I think it would be helpful to, if we discuss it before we vote, I'd really like to know what your thinking is so we can go to the Board of Finance. I don't want to go back to the Board of Finance and say, well, we can't do three. It's not acceptable to the employee to have 3 installments. It's got to be 2 installments. Let's do what we're sensitive to your feeling about it as well. So.
Well, I don't think we can determine what the payment plan is the way what Don's saying. I mean, the only thing I think we can determine tonight is the amount, and that we have to go before the Board of Finance.
Even before that, I'd like to know why Don became a salaried employee. I mean, I don't, in the past, there's been discussions at the Board of Selectmen about that. Was his position reevaluated?
I think,
like all the other positions? Was it a fair evaluation? Was his salary? That did not come before us at all. So if this is a decision made somewhere else, I don't feel qualified to vote on this.
well, all right, we're trying to solve problems here and not, we've got this to deal with. We're not talking about job descriptions and all that. This is an embarrassment, I think, and it's been long-standing, and so I think we owe it to Don to get this resolved. I think at the end we need his input on the particulars so that it can be handled.
Is there any other person that has any situation like this? This is the only person.
No.
I think we have to bring the number to the Board of Finance, not the payment plan, and start the process. And work with Don as how he would like this.
Well, I agree with that because, especially with the sick time payout, you know, I'm going to be making some decisions on how I'm going to be getting some funds, and I have to do that what works out in my best interest. If I do them all at the same time,
you're going to get killed.
I'm going to get hammered.
All right.
When we did that memo, we used 1920 rates, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're going to pay him out, we might have to pay him out at rates that they are today, so it might be higher than that. we're kind of doing that as a courtesy because we've been doing this for a long time. It's something that's legal. We legally owe him this when he was a hourly employee. And we have consulted with our labor attorney and he agrees with that. And there's a whole background that goes along with all of this, and I won't get into that now, but it is what it is. And we wrote in that for a while, and we've been sitting on that for a while, so.
So you're saying?
I would just cut your check for right now.
Right, so you can just cut me a check right now, so I get that. That would make it harder for town of Line to figure out where the money's coming
Right, for
from.
our budget, it wouldn't work for us either, it'd be easier to make something up, a plan here.
Okay, well, I guess the motion would be that the Board of Selectmen would recommend to the Board of Finance that Mr. Bugby's accumulated accumulated comp time be liquidated, and perhaps a payment plan be established to do that.
Yeah, I'll second that. That's fair.
You seconded it, to make the motion, you seconded it, right?
Yes.
Okay. So discussion?
Yes.
So, your motion that you made and Chris seconded does not talk about his Don's employment status. It only talks about the compensation that we've been informed Don has been owed by the town of Line for many, many years. Correct?
Correct.
Because I do not agree with this memo, the way, I can't, if the motion has anything to do about his employment as a full-time employee, I have no spirit, no involvement in that, and I couldn't vote on the memo, but if it's just this compound, that the town of Line wants to finally get off its books and pay Don, that's a different discussion.
The motion is for the town of Line to pay Don his money owed to him. And the payment plan will be determined at a later date.
For more discussion.
Okay, so the board would recommend to the Board of Finance that Mr. Bugby's accumulated comp time be liquidated in a manner determined by the Board of Finance, I guess. Any other discussion on it? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Okay, the last thing was to, well, no, not quite. Just want to make sure that now that we've done some things that the employee handbook make sure that it's consistent with what we're doing. With respect to comp time, it states on page 8 that employees must use all comp time accrued before using vacation leave accrued and comp time must be approved by the supervisor or as necessary the first selectman. So as we come into this year, people who have accumulated sick time, when they wish to take vacation, in this manual it says you will use your comp time. Now, optimally, comp time would be minor numbers of hours. In some cases, it's gotten to be more than that, excluding Don even. So, if somebody wants to take a vacation and they had 2 days worth of comp time, they'd be required to take the comp time first and then vacation second. I think that works well because if the comp time, as we know, it needs to be paid at some point or used, whereas vacation, if you get to the end of the line and you have vacation that's stranded, you would lose it. So this will be a way to ensure that comp time is managed better than it has been in the past. You know, if somebody wants to take a vacation in February and they have some comp time, that would have to be used first. There used to be a provision that it could not be in excess. I guess it does say actually in the current version, it may not accumulate greater than 30 hours. So that's a week for the town hall staff. So it's an appreciable amount of time. And I think we're going to try to make the supervisors, as they have requests for comp time, to make sure that they manage the people to hour here, hour there, a day here, whatever, just to keep it low. This does not say it may not exceed an amount. I think in the past there was well, it does say 30 days, but it doesn't have a time frame within which a comp day needs to be used. And I think that would put a terrible burden on the payroll function to say that a comp time is coming up on its, quote, maturity, if you will. So that's comp time. I think with respect to sick and vacation, we're pretty squared away on that. We've talked fairly long about all that stuff.
Tim, on that comp time, just so you know, that the writing or the wording about using your comp time for vacation will not apply to my member of the union because it's not in their contract. So, that's fine to do that, but you're going to have to, when their negotiations are coming up, you're really going to have to go through that because that handbook, if it's not on their contract, it's in that handbook is nothing.
Well, I don't know, is that the truth? I mean, I thought that if it was not in a contract, the handbook...
Their contract will be coming up to work with you, the decided one, but whatever's in that handbook does not apply to my public work.
I understand it, but
if
if something comes up that's not in the union contract, I imagine the town policy would prevail after.
In that contract, they don't have to abide by it, unless they feel that they want to be nice and good.
Well, we can. They'll be coming up for renewal here next year, but
it might be a little wording you can put in their contract that you have to use your comp time before vacation.
I guess if it's not in the contract, it's not in the contract. So, we can decide how to approach that. Okay, is there anything else on these matters?
No, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, and that is 6:46. Wow.
Huh?